Millions of lives were affected by that 1896 Supreme Court decision, and in fact, we're still feeling the consequences today. Under the doctrine of separate but equal, Plessy versus Ferguson allowed that public facilities, including schools, could be segregated by race. The decision effectively ensured that for the next 60 years or so, African American students were relegated to an inferior status, and African American teachers suffered a similar fate. One of the first people to recognize the need for an organization for teachers in black schools was J.R.E. Lee, Dean of Tuskegee Institute. In 1904, Lee founded the National Association of Teachers in Colored Schools to give black teachers a national forum to address their concerns for African American students. The organization would later become the American Teachers Association. In 1926, NEA and the National Association of Teachers in Colored Schools embarked on their first combined venture, a joint committee formed to battle the refusal of the Southern Association of Schools and Colleges to evaluate and accredit black schools, a decision that effectively prevented any black student from attending college. The efforts of the joint committee prevailed and black schools were accredited. The two associations worked together to improve conditions for African American students and teachers for 40 years. Meanwhile, the beginning of the last century brought a growing unrest among the nation's teachers about the low salaries and poor working conditions experienced across the country. At the 1903 convention, NEA member and Chicago teacher Margaret Haley led a demonstration to focus attention on the plight of public school teachers. In response, NEA released the first statistical report on economic conditions of employment in public education. Professionalizing the teaching profession became paramount. In 1909, the first teacher tenure law was enacted thanks to NEA members in New Jersey. In 1918, members in Memphis held the nation's first teacher strike and won higher salaries for their members. A year later, the first statewide retirement system was put in place once again in New Jersey. When the NEA celebrated its 50th birthday in 1907, membership had reached 5,044. 3 years later, Ella Flagg Young became the first female president. Women continued to play an ever-increasing role at all levels of the association, and women's rights remained an important issue. In 1912, NEA voted to support the fight for women's suffrage, and 2 years later was at the forefront of the movement in equal pay for equal work. The policies and the direction of the association had always been determined by delegates who took it upon themselves to attend the annual convention. That all changed in 1920 when the convention became a representative assembly comprised of locally elected delegates, each who had a vote and say in the association's direction. In 1921, 463 local affiliates sent elected delegates to the annual meeting in Des Moines. One of the first orders of business was the creation of American Education Week, designed to improve literacy after World War I and still going strong today. Improving students' achievements and making education accessible have always been goals of the association, both in the U.S. and around the world. NEA helped found the first international group for educators in 1923, an organization that's grown to become Education International. And in 1941, the association lobbied for the GI Bill of Rights, which was passed in 1944. The bill has allowed over 2 million veterans to attend college, making higher education no longer a privilege of the elite. In 1937, NEA created a separate membership category for college students who were studying to become teachers. I'm Aisha Wells, a physical education student here at Florida A&M University, and a member of the Student Florida Education Association and the Student NEA. After J.R.E. Lee left the American Teachers Association, he went on to become president of Florida A&M and has inspired students like me ever since. His philosophy reminds me of one of the core values of NEA, equal opportunity. We believe public education is the gateway to opportunity. All students have the human and civil right to a quality public education that develops their potential, independence, and character.